On today's Patriot Nation podcast, the rookies have officially reported to camp. Football season has started, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the NFI list that came out today, and we'll also be doing a draft of the best trades in Patriots history. It's a heck of a show, so buckle up and cue the music. Gentlemen, we are back, and football season is officially upon us. Rejoice.
1 week.
Let's go.
1 week here. It's crazy. You couldn't tell. You talk about it every week, but you couldn't tell from the weather that we actually had a summer. But I guess it helped us get quicker to football season. It's pretty crazy. I think too with the NHL and NBA playoffs going so long. Usually there's a much longer gap, right? 5-6 weeks before anything where you're just watching meaningless baseball games. And now the NBA Finals end last night. I'm not much of a big basketball fan, but I did watch last night. It was a great game. And you get 1 week, and then it's football season. So and then obviously the rookies reported today. So that's usually the first. That's like when in baseball terms, when the truck
Pitch
day,
catcher,
like that's
right?
truck day when the rookies report. Like it's here, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the rookies reported, and 3 of them immediately got placed on NFI, which is just a very Patriots thing to happen. Like, don't get too high, guys, because you're not seeing these guys until next year. So we've got a little bit to talk about before we get into the draft.
Yeah, and our guest today, joining us, if you're watching on YouTube, he looks like an egg, but he's not an egg. We promise he's a real person. Brian Phillips from SB Nation. Brian, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate we always love talking to you.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me. I was thinking about maybe switching my screen name up to like Brian and then like 9 numbers after it. Just like Brian 91423. I am officially the troll of today's pod. Just here strictly for trolling, pretty much. And
That's your usual. That's your usual spot, isn't it?
Right. Right. So in keeping with the theme of my Twitter account, I am a faceless egg with some numbers after my name.
I love it. It's going to be weird not talking Mac versus Cam with you, but I think we'll
get into that, I'm sure. We're only a week away from that stuff, so
we might have to.
We'll find a way. Like every topic, Patriots related topic is like one turn around a corner away from a Cam Mac debate. So
it's a good point. So Keegan did mention the NFI list came out today. 2 of them we expected to be on the list. Cameron McGrone, who we assume is going to be an injury redshirt this year and isn't going to be playing at all. Joshua Bledsoe, the safety, was hurt. We don't know if he's going to miss the year or if he's going to start the year on the pup or if he's going to be able to come in for training camp at all. Ramondre Stevenson was a little bit of a surprise, was kind of in and out of OTAs and, has a little bit of a hamstring issue and so starts on the NFI list. Now, just to clarify, the NFI list, they can come off anytime they want. There's not like, they're on it for the next however many weeks. He could come off tomorrow if they wanted to. It doesn't really matter. So, but it is an indication that he's not ready to participate in any drills yet. And so we'll see. This could be an early indication that he is going to take the Patriots' typical route and be redshirted his first year as a running back.
Yeah, I mean, it's what they do with running backs that aren't first-round picks. Really, the only ones that I can remember off the top of my head were Michelle and Maroney. That had pretty big roles year one, and they were obviously first-round picks. People forget right. Shane Vereen, James White, Damian Harris all took a similar route. It's a little interesting, too, in terms of how much workload he'll get. The only running backs they have under contract through next year are Damian Harris, J.J. Taylor, and Ramondre Stevenson. So did they get him some work here to get his feet wet? Maybe you see him kind of like Damian Harris was active a few games his rookie year, didn't see much action. But yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, I don't know. I think they'll have that kind of that 2-man room of Michelle and Harris. A lot of people think Michelle's on the way out, like kind of, looking up at the depth chart, and maybe he could be. But I think today's news kind of solidifies his spot, at least for right now, that he'll have some sort of role in this team. And then, like Brian talked about today, and we're talking about before the show, James White's going to be on the field for, a lot of the time. He's going to demand a ton of targets. What was the stat, Pat? He's the only running back over the last 4 years with at least 50 targets a year.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, his role. That's not going to change. Obviously, he's just here on a 1-year deal, maybe a year-to-year thing. But, yeah, interesting. Like I said, McGrone, me and Keegan called that one. We'll probably talk about that until
it's not a big deal.
Not a Pro Bowler or if he's off the team in a year or two. But I think he can be a guy in the middle of that defense in due time.
Spags, don't sell ourselves short. We're gonna induct him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's going to be me and you up there in Canton. Just we're going to put that gold jacket on.
We did call that one for like weeks. That was
You did.
months in advance.
We hit on the big board. Two of them.
Yeah, well, listen, I'll brag about it until I die because I don't hit those things very often. So yeah, but McGrone, I mean, I don't think he's going to touch the field this year. Even if he didn't tear his ACL in November, like it was a long trek for him to get playing time on this in this linebacker core. So with him, it's not really a surprise. Bledsoe, I believe he broke his wrist during Senior Bowl week. So, depending on what happened with it, there are about 50 different ways you can break a bone. Like he could be out anywhere from 4 weeks to 4 months, depending on what went wrong with that. And a 5th round safety, you're not expecting much out of him. Right. 6th round, I believe. And then Stevenson, like you guys said, with a young running back, you're not expecting much out of him anyways. It's a crowded backfield. I think what people got most excited about was, kind of as injury depth, if Sony goes down for a game, then he can step up and be the number 2 and they can constantly have that 1-2 punch, on early downs. But who knows? Maybe it's a hamstring and he needs a couple weeks to get right and then he's good. So I think that these were all expected moves and, they're just going to kind of have to see what plays out with Stevenson. With the other 2 guys, it doesn't really matter what happens with them this year, to be honest.
Yeah, I was excited to see Stevenson. Obviously, I think he's a perfect fit for this offense. I was excited to see more of what kind of passing chops he can show, right? Whatever small glimpses we could get, throughout training camp, or if he did somehow find his way onto the 53-man roster this year and didn't, catch the Foxborough flu or anything. Would have been nice to see where he was, because as a big fella who reportedly has some nice soft hands, those are the things I get excited about. But, it is what it is. Expecting any more than Patriots rookies going on NFI before training camp. If I was expecting any more than that, then, shame on me.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been talking to people about Stevenson this week, fantasy wise, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's a big bruising back," and I'm like, well, "He is, but like, he's not. That's not just who he is, right? He's not 3 yards on a cloud of dust. He's not Antoine Smith, where he's just getting the ball and just running into the line. He's like, he has quick feet, he has good hands. Like, there's a lot more to like than just that, right? And so, and he is a big guy and can run people over when necessary, but that's not like his whole game. And I think I'm excited to see what happens with him. Of course, like you say, we might have to wait till next year or later on, certainly in preseason, to see what happens.
Lest we forget the clips of him stonewalling Tuff Borland at the Senior Bowl. I mean,
Yes,
that was beautiful. Like I was posting those every 5 minutes on Twitter during the Senior Bowl week. So
yeah.
The guy can do a lot. It's just whether or not he's going to see the field anytime soon to show people what he can do.
Well, I think those guys that typically don't get redshirted are the guys that are really good pass blockers. So that was the only reason why I was like, well, maybe he will see the field because of that, right? And Sony Michel, who's in the last year of his contract, who the Patriots probably won't re-sign, but like a situation like LA where Cam Akers gets hurt, unfortunately, just terrible injury, and you feel awful for the kid. But like now there's a hole in that running backs, on the depth chart there. Maybe they want to take a chance on a guy like Sony Michel, and they'll send you a 4th round pick for him or something like that. The Patriots might say, okay, well, Stevenson seems like a kid that can play. We'll bring him in as our backup running back to Damian Harris and ship Sony Michel off and get something for him instead of just letting him walk at the end of the year next year. You're probably not going to get a comp pick for him because he's just not going to sign a big enough contract with anyone. In a timeshare at best this year. No one's going to give him a big contract next year, regardless of really what happens. So there's a possibility there. I think that could work. But again, who the heck knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, it definitely feels like a luxury that they were able to put him on the NFI. Like, a lot of others, if he was in another situation, who knows? A little hamstring injury, like play through it and you'll be all right. But on this roster with this talent, people are going to hate to hear me say that, but there's a lot of talent on the offense, so they're all right, letting him sit out a couple of weeks and take his time getting, into things.
Agreed. All right, you want to get into the draft? What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right, so this draft today, as I explained at the beginning, is a draft of the best trades in Patriots history. So this is a trade. Now, I've written an article about the Jimmy G trade and how it's turned into 37 different things, and Damian Harris and Jarrett Stidham and so on and so on and so on, and like 8 different picks. That's not what we're doing, right? That's not what we're doing. We're doing a trade for a player, all right, specifically for someone. So we traded something. Now, you could trade a draft pick. That's fine. Doesn't have to be a player for a player, but you're getting an actual human being in return, not just a draft pick, okay? So trading up for Gronk in 2010 doesn't make the list because you're trading technically for a draft pick to then draft a player. So I believe the draft order is Spags. Again, Spags is like this like, by the way, defending champion this week.
Defending champion Pat Lynn.
Right here.
That's right.
Killing it last week. I'm shocked because I voted for myself, but if I was a member of the general public, I would have been voting for Spags.
Spags should have won.
So, but hey, I'll take the win. I don't care how I don't care what happened. But so that's what we got going on. So it's Spags, Brian, me, and then Keegan. Of course, it will snake back. So right. Keegan will get back-to-back picks. All right, so Spags, why don't you lead us off, sir, with your number 1 pick?
For sure, the best trade in Patriots history. It's hard to really debate this one. Randy Moss for a 4th-round pick on April 29, 2007. Sucks he never won a ring here. I think that's one of the most unfortunate things about his time here, but broke a ton of records, kind of changed that offense, and was a joy to watch. So number 1 pick right there.
That's a solid number 1 pick. I would like to mention, although it's not applicable, that is part of the greatest trade in the history of sports, because they traded out of the 1st round that year to San Francisco. As a matter of fact, San Francisco drafted Joe Staley, which is a great pickup for them. But they traded a 4th-round pick in the 2007 draft and a 1st-round pick in the 2008 draft. The 4th-round pick, of course, the Patriots traded to Oakland for Randy Moss. The 1st-round pick in 2008 became Gerard Mayo. So they traded a 1st-round pick for Randy Moss and Gerard Mayo. Worked out pretty good. And they ended up with a 3rd-round pick, Sean Crable. Don't worry about Sean Crable. But but
Michigan legend, isn't that right, Brian?
One hell of a trade.
Yes, sir.
So, all right, Brian, you, sir, are up with the 2nd overall pick.
I've got to debate greatest trade in Patriots history. As much as I love Randy, might be my favorite football player of all time. The most important trade in Patriots history was not for a player on the field, gentlemen. It was for Mr. Bill Belichick.
Oh,
I was going to go with that, but I didn't know if it would count. So let's
ask for forgiveness and not permission.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what this move was all about, right? Just ask forgiveness later. Turns out they ended up working out the trade. Patriots, the biggest piece, obviously, in the trade is the 16th overall pick, which I think got packaged up and shipped off, chopped into a million pieces. It turned into Julian Peterson at 5 overall and Jason Webster.
No, I'm pretty sure it was
Sean Ellis.
Sean Ellis.
Sean Ellis. I'm just tracking like the pick, the spider web of the picks.
Right.
Where everything ended up. There's a whole bunch of guys involved, but the Patriots end up getting Bill Belichick, and things worked out fairly decently from then on.
That's a pretty good trade. That one worked out all right.
You know what? Every week,
that works.
This 4 straight weeks, I think that I'm gonna like sneak around you guys and get like a great and be like, oh, you guys are idiots, and I always end up getting screwed. So, this is tough. It's a tough start for your boy.
All right, so I'm up with the 3rd pick, and I'm going to take number 3 on my list, which, it still works out to be a pretty good trade. In 2007, a restricted free agent with the Miami Dolphins, Wes Welker, had a 2nd-round tender, and the Patriots said, you know what? We're going to package our 2nd-round pick and then throw in an extra 7th, so you trade us, Welker. We don't have to go around the whole stupid, we'll give him a contract and everything else like that. So Patriots traded a 2nd-round pick and a 7th-round pick for Wes Welker, and then he went on to put up, I don't know, like 1,000 100 reception seasons, and unfortunately never won a ring either, but did play in 2 Super Bowls. 3 Super Bowls, actually, lost them all, but over 3. What are you going to do? So, but Wes Welker.
Yeah, so this is tough because there was like a serious top 3, and then from there it's like, who cares? So I got to get the best of the who cares. My 1st round pick, I'm going to go with Kyle Van Noy. You trade a 6th round pick to Detroit in the middle of the year for Kyle Van Noy in a 7th. So you moved back maybe 20, 30 spots, and you got a 2-time Super Bowl champion, a guy who led one of the better defenses in the history, or was one of the leaders of one of the better defenses in your franchise's history. You ended up getting him back a couple years later. I mean, he's one of those guys where you look back at Dynasty 2.0, he's one of the pillars of that dynasty. So I'm going to start with Kyle Van Noy, and then with my 2nd round pick, I'm going to have to go with Corey Dillon. They traded a 2nd round pick for him. They needed a running back. It was like the one thing that 2004 squad didn't have, and they got one of the better ones in the NFL. And, he was great for the Patriots for a couple of seasons, 04, 05. That one worked out pretty well. I think that's about as even a trade you can get. You get a couple of years of a really good running back for a 2nd round pick in the early 2000s. Good trade for both sides. So I'm going to go with Kyle Van Noy and Corey Dillon back to back.
It's a great point. That's a great both of those. I wanted both of those, but obviously can't get it. It's the way it goes. It was the right move. I am also going to go with a Super Bowl winner for the Patriots. Made one of the biggest plays in their most recent Super Bowl, and that is Jason McCourty. The Patriots in 2018 traded a 6th round pick, very similar to the Van Noy deal. Traded a 6th round pick for McCourty and a 7th round pick. Of course, went on to have a fantastic 2018 season, including that pass breakup in the end zone. And then, of course, good 2019 season and a pretty good 2020 season. So Jason McCourty is my pick there.
I believe that puts me on the clock, right?
Yep.
Just from swag alone, bringing in a guy like Aqib Talib has to make a list for me. I'm taking Aqib Talib trade for my 2nd round pick. What did they end up giving? I think it was a 5th rounder for him. I don't even remember.
A 4th to Tampa for
Talib
in a 7th.
Yeah.
There we go.
Which is nothing.
That works. Yeah, he completely was. He was still towards the back end, obviously, of the prime of his career, but he was nasty in that Patriots offense, and you'll always remember the matchup problems that he created for Bill Belichick's defense. So plus he was nasty. Aqib Talib's
he changed the way they play defense too. I think you know what I mean.
Yep.
It was very important to have that number 1 corner, and they've had one ever since. So he started.
Yeah, I mean,
just
he was
for the soundbite alone.
Yep.
I got Tom Brady on ball. He on my team. That man is a walking soundbite. Amazing.
You think about those teams before he got to New England, like those defensive back groups were horrendous. And those years were the only times they didn't have a elite corner, and he brought it back around. Like they had Law and Samuel, and then they had I don't even know who, Terrence Wheatley. I keep saying Terrence Wheatley every week, but Terrence Wheatley was like the best corner they had for 5 years.
Rozai Dowling and just
Rozai Dowling. Yeah. And then Talib brings it
give
back.
Sterling more his due, please. Okay.
All right. Lee Bodden was there for a year. Like
Steve
it was rough
Gregory.
in the streets.
Lee Bodden actually had a decent year.
Ellis Hobbs.
Ellis
Oh,
Hobbs.
God, dude.
Oh, Steve
Groans
Gregory
everywhere in
was
New
definitely,
England.
Thank you, Talib. Thank you.
Brutal.
All
right.
I think I'm up. I have
back-to-back picks there.
Yeah, I'm going to go here with Corey Dillon, 2nd round pick. They traded him in 2004.
Spags, get with the program, bro. Corey Dillon.
I already picked Corey Dillon.
Did you?
Is gone, sir.
I'm having tough Wi-Fi here, so that's on me. All right, well, I'm going to go with another Super Bowl winner. I'm going to go with the trade for Trent Brown the first time around. Let's see what the details were here. Trent Brown for a 5th. What was the swap they made? Or
it was 95 for Trent Brown and 143.
It was a 3rd to San Francisco for Trent Brown and
a
the pick
5th back.
Yeah, that ended up being Jawan Bentley.
That's
Look at
right.
that.
Okay,
My
so there
dog.
you go. You get Trent Brown back. Now I'm sweating this one out because I have no idea where I'm going to go because I thought I was getting Corey Dillon and staying under the radar here. Ooh, this is tough. I'm going to go with oh, God, you guys screwed me. I might have to have someone else go first and then just bounce it back to me. I'm going to give up. I'm going to trade back here. I'm going to trade back.
Are you
about
trading
Minnesota?
back? Oh,
I'm gonna trade back.
He's pulling a Vikings and
Yeah, I'm
waiting.
going to trade back. Yep.
All right.
Okay,
Time has
I
ran
will
out.
take this absolutely. I'll take this opportunity now. damn, I completely forgot the rule that you're not allowed to. If you trade a player for picks, does that count?
No.
No, you have to get like a player
Damn it.
back in return.
Oh, okay. Well, technically, there was a player involved in the Chandler
God.
Jones trade.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, get out of here with that. No. Well, so Chandler Jones for who was the guard they got?
Jonathan Cooper.
Jonathan
There you
Cooper.
go. Jonathan Cooper.
Jonathan Cooper. Who can forget?
On-
Jonathan is over. A couple of draft picks are thrown in the mix, and they just happen to turn into Malcolm Mitchell and Joe Tooney. You know,
Just so you know, Brian.
does that violate the rule? I don't know.
No, that's fine. But the graphic's gonna say Jonathan Cooper. Like that's all it's gonna say. So
What else would you expect from an egg Twitter troll?
yeah,
on your
Brian
live stream?
1279364 is back.
Yes, sir. No, okay, all right. If we're gonna take that back, if I'm gonna give a realistic pick, I'll go with I'll bring in Big Ted Washington back
Okay.
back in the heyday.
Ooh,
I think it was
Teddy.
a fourth rounder. He spent 1 year as basically the nice thing about having Ted Washington is you could play with 10 players because he was an entire defensive line.
That man.
There was no
when-
two gapping. He was a 3-gap player by being on the field. He was the widest human being I've seen maybe ever.
That's one of my favorite. So that was the 03 season, right? And
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
and Vince was Vince a rookie that year?
No, it's the year
No.
before.
yeah, year before.
So Vince was Washington. I could have sworn Washington.
Was he there for 2
with the
years?
Patriots.
I think yeah.
No,
was
he
2 years.
didn't. He was only
Oh.
here for 1 year, and then he signed with the Raiders the next year. I could have sworn
Gross.
it was him talking to Vince, but I forget who he was talking to. But someone was talking trash before the game, and whatever
The
player it
Carolina
was,
game, right?
was getting all hot and bothered, and Washington's like, "Hey, walk away! Shut up! We do our talking on the field. Shut up!" And he's just like, and I was like, "All right, there you go, Ted. That man, dude." I got I'm at all the games, so I got there early one day, and I walked down like just like the front row. I'm just in the front row of the stands, and he's walking, and I'm like, that is the largest human being I've ever seen in my entire life. He was an absolute monster, and he was unbelievable.
Lest we forget, the Denver Broncos drafted Ted Washington as a middle linebacker, and he got so big that he became like one of the original nose tackles on those Broncos teams.
What?
Yes,
That's unbelievable.
I have a football card from when I was a kid that someone gave me, and it's Ted Washington, middle linebacker, Denver Broncos. It's the funny. I didn't believe it was the same guy, but it is.
Are you sure?
Who it is? Oh, swear to God,
Wow. All right. Well, there you
he
go.
wore like number
So-
52.
I'm up now, right? Because I traded back
Yep.
a pick.
You
And
on
I
track.
traded back, so I'm up.
You traded back and got nothing in return.
Okay, I got one. I'm gonna go with I got Deion Branch in return. I'm gonna do the second time they traded for him back after they got rid of
Okay.
Randy. 4th round pick, get
Okay.
Deion Branch back. That was Tom Brady's guy for a long time. People forget that. Super Bowl MVP. So I'll go with Deion Branch 2.0.
Okay. Deion Branch 2.0. I like it. That's a good one. I'm caught here because there are two guys that I want. I know Keegan's probably going to take one of them because he sucks. And so
That's right.
Oh man, the value is so good on both. I'm going to go with LeGarrette Blount. LeGarrette Blount for a 7th round pick. LeGarrette Blount, by the way, traded in again, doesn't count, but inside of the Jamie Collins trade, Cordell Patterson, Jamie Collins trade, they trade back from 29. They get a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 7th round pick. The 2nd, of course, was Jamie Collins. The 3rd was Logan Ryan. The 4th was Josh Boyers. Don't worry about that. And then the 7th, they traded to Tampa Bay for LeGarrette Blount. Blount, of course, did well with the Patriots, pretty well with the Patriots while he was here. Had a little stint in Pittsburgh before he got caught smoking a little of the wacky tobacco and ended up back here afterwards. But I love Blount on this team, and so LeGarrette Blount is my pick.
LG traded for the fastest man alive, Jeff Demps. People forget.
Oh yes, you're
Preseason
right.
legend.
Good point. Terrible.
So I got back-to-back picks here. It's starting to get real gross in terms of trades. I'm going to go with Martellus Bennett. I think it might be a little early, but
early. It's the last round.
No, I got this. I got another one right after this.
Well, I mean, like,
I could have made him after. You know what? Listen, Martellus Bennett, a fourth to Chicago for Bennett and a sixth. They lost Gronk that year. Like, I don't think people remember that without Martellus Bennett, they probably don't make it to the Super Bowl because he played such an important role. Like in that AFC Championship game, the blocking when they were running all over the Steelers and throwing quick slants all over the place and just bullying the old man that ended up retiring after that year. He was a very important part of that team that people forget about. And he speaks glowingly of the Patriots, which is nice because you don't hear that out of guys who only spent a cup of coffee here.
It's quite true.
And then with my last pick, I'm going to go with Cordero Patterson just because he rocked the greatest chain in the history of professional football. And he also was, I mean, he's the only kick returner, Bethel Johnson, I guess, but like the only kick returner that ever mattered in New England, that ever made a difference. And he was Josh McDaniels' wet dream. You know, he had a guy to give end arounds and line up in the backfield and, you know, run on wheel routes and do all that crazy stuff. So back to back, Martellus Bennett and Cordero Patterson.
Okay. All right. I like it. I kind of hate that, but you were going to take Blunt. So I was like, you know what? I have to have Blunt over Bennett. I love the Bennett trade as well.
You know what? I'm kind of glad you took him because I would have had two running backs. So I got a well-rounded team now.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Well, I am going to go with an actual wide receiver as opposed to Cordero Patterson, a player who actually played wide receiver, and that is Brandon Cooks. Patriots traded a first-round pick in 2017 for Brandon Cooks, and of course traded him again for a first-round pick in 2018. He's a guy who was a Pro Bowl caliber player when he was here. I mean, he just all he does is catch 65 passes and go for 1,000 yards every single year, and he keeps getting traded every single year. My theory on why he keeps getting traded every year is because he's not a true number one receiver. Like you don't trade a first round pick for a guy unless he's Stephon Diggs level. And Brandon Cooks ain't that. He's a good player. He's just not. He's not that valuable. But he's going to get you 1,000 yards every freaking year, which he's done every single year of his career, except for 2019 in Houston, where I think he was hurt. So, like beyond that year, he's gone for like 1,000 yards every single year. He did it with the Patriots, and of course, unfortunately, got hurt at the beginning of that Super Bowl, and I think would have helped the Patriots. Now, I mean, they didn't lose because of their offense, but still, that would have helped the team. I think perhaps win in 2017. But Brandon Cooks, my pick there.
So real quick, before we move on, I was going to pick Brandon Cooks, and then I remembered the picks that the Patriots traded to New Orleans became Ryan Ramczyk and Trey Hendrickson, who are both like Pro Bowl level players. So it's a tough swing on the other end. And the Patriots got a fourth back, and I believe that was Antonio Garcia, who played 0 snaps for the Patriots. So around Cooks, tough trade for the Patriots.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Good pick though, Pat. No one's gonna see it on the graphic.
Would they have drafted those guys though?
Absolutely not. They would have picked Antonio Garcia in the first round.
I mean,
and
it's
tough.
So there you go. Anyways, all right. Brian, back to you. Oh, wait a second. Does Spags get Spags doesn't get this pick. Brian gets his pick and then Spags. Okay.
Oh, I'm in real trouble here. I just have my roster just absolutely gutted. We are, we're scrambling over here right now. I might need to hit the Vikings button.
Well, Brian, real quick.
Twice?
Yep.
I'm not gonna give him a pick, but I just gotta.
He says picks.
There's some beef, some serious beef left on the board. A thick boy that you might be interested in. Just letting you know.
Oh man,
I'm drawing a blank too. So we're fighting it right here.
I literally have nothing else on my.
Silver Saliga?
No, it's Danny Shelton.
That's
damn it. Okay, so
it's
you can take that one because I got another one of mine. So
I can't pick only 350-pound defensive tackles. Like I've brought up Ted Washington, now Danny Shelton, and Silver Saliga. So or Salinga. I've got to add. I've got to diversify. Like I'm gonna go with Akeem Ayers. Akeem Ayers was a big time underrated edge guy for that 2014 defense. When did they bring him in? Like it was week 4 or 5. It felt I don't.
Yeah, they got him from Tennessee for like nothing. And he
Nothing.
was like a solid role player for them, like a solid role. And he went off and got a pretty.
He got a
big
contract. Yep.
Yeah,
I think the Giants gave him some
I
good
liked
money.
him. I liked him a lot here.
Him and they actually signed him and Jonathan Casillas like
Yep.
same offseason, just right off the Patriots roster.
Yep, it's true.
So Akeem Ayers.
So
All
take
right,
us
I
like
home.
got a real thick front seven going on here.
That's
To
right.
take us home. So this is going to be fun on the graphic because people are going to be like, "What are you thinking?" And this obviously ticked Brady off. But I'm going to have to say the Logan Mankins trade, as much as a head scratcher it was at the time, it turned into Tim Wright and a 2015 fourth rounder who, hey, had a pretty big Super Bowl, Trey Flowers, who is now a very rich man. Tim Wright had a decent year when he was here. And I believe, and Gronk went down that year. So he caught a couple touchdowns. I think he was I'm not trying to hype up Tim Wright. They got Trey Flowers.
He had
out
a
of it.
decent year. Tim Wright had a decent year.
Played
It
well.
absolutely sounds like you're trying to hype up Tim Wright.
I'm pretty sure Tim Wright like never played a snap
Yeah.
again after
I'm,
that
I'm
year.
trying to. I'm
Like,
trying to
just-
justify my pick.
No.
This is.
Listen,
We should have done 3 rounds. Terrible.
dark blue gold killing it over here.
Listen,
Philly Dorsett. I mean, that's a decent
you
trade right
guys
there.
you guys left Danny Shelton on the board, Josh Gordon, who they got for practically nothing, and
That doesn't.
though it
count.
ended poorly,
They traded a 3rd round pick for Josh Gordon, didn't they?
they got him in a fifth back. No, they traded a 5th for Gordon and a 7th.
Okay.
So like
Yeah.
nothing. And then Trent Brown again. They just traded for him this offseason.
Right.
He's going to be
I
their
got
starting
He
right
can't, be on
tackle.
he can't be on the draft twice though.
I will.
I would've
you're,
done that.
You're damn right, Ken, and he'll be my final pick. I am now having Ted Washington, Trent Brown, Silver Salinga, and Danny Shelton. I am taking up from sideline to sideline. You cannot run on me. I'm taking up the entire line of scrimmage.
So Brian is forfeiting Bill Belichick and Aqib to leave so he can get a couple pick boys. I like it.
Listen, I'll trade one of mine for Belichick. That's fine. That's a trade. That's a trade
Doing
I want to make.
trades.
I'll be
Bill
be on
just
the next.
moving Trent Brown, and Ted Washington around. That's my entire roster. Is Bill just moving large chess pieces around?
Am I the only person that thinks the Josh Gordon trade worked? Like they got like 6 touchdowns out of him. That's pretty good for a 5th
He was
round pick.
pretty good. He was fine. Like
Yes.
at that X receiver position in this offense, we know how tough it is to play. Obviously, given the production, but he just never. You come in with expectations that we shouldn't have had, but the player that he was for that short period of time, thinking that maybe you could see flashes of that again, and
Right.
and we never really saw it, which kind of sucked.
I mean, that's the hard thing is that there's so much talent there that just wasn't realized, unfortunately. And Dark Blue Gold says it here too. Like Dorsett might actually be a better trade than the Gordon trade. I mean, you're trading a guy who's never going. I mean, literally never going to play on your team. Was going to be cut, and you traded him for Dorsett, who ended up having 2 decent seasons, 3 decent seasons here. They traded
they
Jacoby Brissett for him.
Right. What?
So I mean,
That's-
Jacoby Brissett for Philip Dorsett, like that's a no-brainer.
I think
Tough brain fart.
another trade I wanted to bring up, but I didn't know if it would qualify. But because I guess maybe it does with the rules because you're getting rid of a player that was involved. The Richard Seymour ending up turning into Nate Solder was a pretty big one too.
Yeah,
It's a good one.
that's one of those trades where it's like obviously you don't want to lose Richard Seymour because he was still a beast and he was an All-Pro I think this first year in Oakland, but to get your starting left tackle for the second part of your Super Bowl run is pretty solid.
Yeah.
Right?
And no one will ever-
had two rings, right?
2 rings.
Yep.
Yep.
No one will ever, think about it, but like the amount of money they saved on Seymour to like
Right.
how many guys did they sign with that money? Contributors. So
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah,
the
true.
ultimate Belichick trade. It's
Right.
Yep.
the one of the the major pillars of the of what people think of when they think of a shrewd Belichickian style move was that Seymour deal.
You know what's interesting is that I got the impression that Bill, I don't want to cast dispersions here. I got the impression that Bill never really liked Seymour for whatever reason. I don't want to say like famously, but he like punished him after Seymour like left his dad. Seymour's father died, and he went to like the funeral, and then he like kind of like I don't know if he benched him or like fought, but he did something where it was just kind of surprising. Like Seymour's gone, but it was still a little strange that like he kind of punished him for being gone from the team. But it's like, bro, his father died. Like he went to the funeral. What do you want him to do? You know, like it just, I don't know. It did. And
It
could
feels
be
like there
absolutely
has to
nothing.
be something more there.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It feels like
There-
there's just something between them. You know what I mean?
There's also the story. I believe it was him and Dion Branch. They like got caught in Louisville or something, and they couldn't get a flight back to New England the night before training camp, so they
Oh, baby.
rented a car and drove back together.
Unbelievable.
And I believe they were like 8 minutes late for check-in or something like that, and they both got in trouble. They both got fined, I believe, something like that.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah. I mean, it's
That's
just,
a Belichick move. You're 8 minutes late.
100%.
It's $100K, buddy.
And
My
that's,
pocket.
that's what happened in 09, right? They were late because of snow. And he's like, bro, get here earlier. And he's like, well, it was
Adelius
snowing.
Thomas.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to ask Bill about that.
What
Or you're
a
gonna have to
joker.
ask Bill why you're off the team in like 2 months.
Yeah, what a joker that guy was. But that's again, it's one of those things. So, but the trades are interesting. It's the exercise here is fun because, of course, the majority of these great trades that happen are draft pick for draft pick trades, right? Where they're moving around the draft board. You know, the Gronk trade you mentioned earlier, where they trade a second round pick to Jacksonville in 09 for a second round pick in 2010 and a seventh round pick in 09. Of course, seventh round pick in 09 ends up as Edelman. And the second round
Yep.
pick in 2010 ends up as Gronk. They traded like a fifth round pick to move up 2 spots and take Gronk, but still, right? We got Gronk and Edelman for a second round pick to Jacksonville. I mean, that's stupid, right? And so, those are the types of trades. I mentioned the Randy Moss trade, where they trade a first round pick, get a fourth and a first, and end up with Mayo and Moss. And it's like those are the types of things where they make their the most headway, where it's like they turn those draft picks into something else, right? And
Yeah.
Brian mentioned it too when Jonathan Cooper. They trade Chandler
Patriots
Jones.
legend.
They get Patriots on Jonathan Cooper.
I mean,
But they
he doesn't
get a-
get enough trash for being like the worst draft pick of all time. He was like the 8th overall pick.
Yeah, he was
I
awful.
think he was 6th overall.
He was
Yeah,
so
and
bad.
started like one game in the NFL. Just
He was
horrible.
But I mean, ultimately they traded him for Chandler Jones, so it wasn't that much of a disaster.
I think he's
guess,
still
right?
employed. I think he was signed by Dallas last year.
No, he was
Really?
not. There is a 0%
I
chance.
think he
that's
might have
true.
been.
No way, dude.
Looking it up. That's quite literally unbelievable.
Either that or I just have no concept of time anymore. Like whatever.
Yeah, it could have been.
It says former here on the old Wikipedia. So
Ugh.
yeah,
But what does it say?
his last game was July 15th, 2019. He signed with the Raiders and was inactive and
Thank
released
God.
in September.
Okay.
Oh.
Listen, you're excused. Last year doesn't count, so you're excused.
The last game that he played was November 11th, 2018 against the Bucks. He gave up 7 sacks.
Oh my god.
That's unbelievable for a guard. That's crazy.
That's amazing.
Unreal. I mean, I don't know how you had that wrong. Robert Gallery, though. I mean, that was a bad one. But he ended up being decent, didn't he? After like
retire?
switching a guard or something stupid like that. He was the
who
number
the guy
2
they traded
overall pick.
for? Who was the guy they traded for that like or no, they signed him. This was a couple of years ago. They signed him, he retired immediately,
Yeah,
and
then
then
he
signed
ended
with
up-
someone
Jared
else.
Valdir?
With Green Bay. Yeah,
Yeah,
Valdir.
Valdir, yeah.
Yeah, what a douche that guy was.
Broncos.
By the way, great story here. Dark Blue Gold hits up Kraft buying Foxborough Stadium. That's one of my favorite stories of all time.
Mhm.
I could write we could have a whole podcast about that, about how Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5, actually saved the New England Patriots.
It ruined the
Patriots
Sullivans.
football.
Just
Saved Patriots football. That's what happened, right? They went bankrupt and the stadium went into bankruptcy, and Kraft
Yep.
bought the stadium in bankruptcy, signed a 10-year deal that was like, you can't leave. Have to play every single home game in Foxborough Stadium for the next 10 years, and then would not be bought out of his contract. And that's how he ended up buying the team. So it's just like stuff like that. You're like, wait, what? Are you sure? Like that's what? And it's like it's unbelievable how things like that happen. But that's like one of the coolest stories ever.
yeah, that's a very SB Nation thing too. Like the guys at Secret Base, they'll do like a 9-part series on the Seattle Mariners. I was watching it the other day, and it was
That's
like
so good.
it all started because like some guy burnt a stadium down in like 1936, and that's how the Mariners were born. It's like, oh, okay, all right,
Unbelievable.
sweet.
Foolish.
They are
Oh,
doing
now-
the Falcons. Can't
the
wait.
Falcons. Oh, baby. 28-3. How you going to figure that one out? Yikes. So, anyways, all right. That's it. I think we're done. Training camp next week. So we're not sure what the schedule is going to look like next week. I'm going to be in Maine. So I've been instructed that I probably shouldn't take my podcast stuff with me.
We get it.
You know,
We get
so, but
Well-
I might call in. like Brian's doing. I get the little egg emoji there.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
professional football journalist Ryan Spags will be at training camp.
Pretty
And
exciting.
I'll be
J
here.
Spags.
Yeah, Big J Spags, Lil J Keegan. I'll be at home.
Hey, he's got the check
He
mark. He's got the check mark now.
Yeah. I think I'm just gonna stay on the phone with him all day, and I'll report from Spags' phone from Foxborough. So we'll figure out something next week. If Spags can't make it, I'm gonna read the Dynasty just live on stream to everybody, and we're all gonna have a grand time.
It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. So yeah, and we'll see what happens. Again, we might go live. Maybe Friday night or Saturday,
Right.
even Saturday. Like who knows? But it's kind of silly to go live on Wednesday after one day of training camp. It's like, what are we
Right.
doing? We got 2 more days of training camp, and obviously we got stuff coming through. So it's exciting times. Oh, they did announce joint practices, which are exciting. We already knew about the one in Philadelphia, but now we're getting the Giants here, which is here, but it's an away game, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool for the fans to get that joint practice at home and not in New Jersey, which is pretty nice. So I'm looking
hope-
forward to that.
I hope the Giants fly with the Patriots on aircraft.
That'd be pretty cool.
In like 20 years, the stories, God,
Oh man,
good
so
stuff.
good. Especially like Belichick with all the Giants guys and Joe Judge is there. Like, bro, that'd be
Belichick just gets them all in the middle of the plane, tells them about like Carl Banks and Lawrence
Oh,
Taylor. He's
God.
like, you guys don't know. Lawrence Taylor was the greatest football player of all time.
man. The story, bro. Taylor telling that story about who was it? Someone was talking about the defensive, the linebacker room, and I forget who it was. But it was the linebacker room, and they were waiting to start, and they're like, "Coach, what the hell's the holdup? Like, how come we're waiting to start practice?" And LT like finally walks in, and he's like, "All right, we can start the meeting now." And they're like,
Yep.
"Meeting doesn't start till LT gets here." It's just so good, dude. That friggin' guy. Oh my god, what a legend!
LT, who won an MVP on crack. People
Yeah.
forget.
Decently
the
good.
only guy to do it.
That we know of, at least. So,
Right.
but anyways, so so, but yes,
Off the
so
rails.
we are completely
Yeah, we are.
100% off the rails.
But
Let's
wrap
end
it up,
this
Pat.
before we say something crazy. Brian, thanks for coming. We appreciate it. Just tell people where they can. I mean, people should know where you are, anyways. But tell people, anyways.
Yeah, all over Pat's pulpit, but with my face on it instead of like an egg. When you have an egg like this, you're allowed to say whatever you want and have no repercussions. So it's great. But yeah, we're gonna be really ramping up, obviously, all the content here on the YouTube channel. We're gonna be adding a film room show with me and the one and only Taylor Kyles.
Ooh, okay.
And we got some cool stuff. Yeah, this season's gonna rock. It's gonna be really cool. This YouTube channel right here, where anybody is watching. Well, it can't be anybody watching now after our last 5 minutes. But
We got 4 viewers still.
hey, there we go.
Shout out Dark Blue Gold. Ride or die.
This is hey, what's up? This is going to be where it's at this year, and it's going to be the big focus is really giving Patriots fans a place to get some unique video content. So, yeah, everybody keep your eyes peeled to Pat's Pulpit on YouTube and smash that subscribe button.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Yes, sir. We love it. So, anyways, that's what we got. Thank you so much for coming in. And again, I know practice hasn't started, but rookies are in the building. It is officially football season.